welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Hillary, and if you are a returning subscriber, then you must be a crazy Hilly, so welcome back. Also, if you guys like this channel or this content, feel free to give me a like or subscribe or leave a comment down below. It actually helps the channel out so much. Thank you guys. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know I have merch down below and a Patreon. If you guys wanted to support the channel, those are both great ways to do it. And they're just down in the description below if you want to take a click and a gander and get something if you want it. If you don't want it, that's fine. And also, I'd like to throw out a big thank you to Paula. Yes, she bought a merch item, and I'm so happy. I love reading your comments, so thank you so much, Paula. Also, down below, I've included some links for camera equipment that I use, ghost equipment that I use, that I haven't had to use on, I haven't had a chance to use on camera yet, but I kind of use, like, not on camera by myself, you know, in the dark. But all that's down below if you guys are just curious of like what light I use or whatever. It's down there if you're interested. Other than all that, tonight we are going to get right into it, and we are going to be covering the ghosts of Pennhurst Asylum. Penhurst State School was a live-in facility for people with mental disabilities, and it was basically this place where people would go and just drop off their children or anybody really that had any sort of disability. If they had autism, they would go there. If they were severely disabled, they would go there, and conditions actually varied. But this place has been surrounded with controversy probably from the time it opened. It opened in 1908, and the complex was first known as the State Institution for Epileptics and Feeble-Minded. Great name, right, for people with mental disabilities. But from its start, it had a reputation for the mistreatment of the patients in this facility. Over 10,000 patients crossed the doors into this facility, and it was basically a place where parents would drop their autistic or children that had learning disabilities off. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids would become wards of the state. So their parents would just leave them there at a care facility because, you know, they didn't want to take care of their child that had these disabilities. And a lot of them would just leave them there. And they would hope, I don't know if the parents would hope, I would assume that they would hope that people were taking care of their children well, but that's just not the case. This place was severely understaffed. There was a lot of stuff that went on between abuse and other things that should never go on in a hospital, as far as I'm concerned, or anywhere, actually, for that matter. But yeah, I just want to be like to the parents, you know, you have a child, you are obligated to take care of that child. Regardless of if the child has learning disabilities or not, you are obligated to take care of them. You shouldn't just be dropping them off at some place. Like, I feel like this was somewhere where you should go and maybe check out before you drop off a human being there. Ugh. Despite the high number of patients being there, the state actually paid really bad wages for people to work there. So not a lot of people worked there. There weren't a lot of nurses, there weren't a lot of doctors, and there were not a lot of orderlies. So it would come down to these children or people living in these very, very awful conditions. They would be left in these metal cribs, like soiled themselves, and they would just be left there for hours and hours and hours. If you were feeding a child, a lot of nurses would go around and feed every child with the exact same spoon instead of alternating, which now, especially in COVID times, you're like, what? Excuse me? No. But that is mainly what they did. And these kids were so desperate for human contact at the time that they would actually harm themselves or smear feces. Like, they would do things to themselves so that the nurses were forced to take a bath, or they could see somebody, because most of the time they were just segregated or just not treated well. Like, you need human contact. Nowadays there is a standard to how people are treated and how they should be taken care of, and there is like a way to do these things, and this is not the way to do these things. Now, if we're already wondering why this place could be haunted, let alone all these things, these are some of the punishments that they did to these children. If the child was acting up, they would take these kids downstairs and say the child bit you. The first time they would be reprimanded, like yelled at, probably beaten for biting you. And if they bit you again, they would take you downstairs and they would remove every single one of your teeth so that you were unable to bite any of the orderlies. Because, like, that's the thing to do when a child bites you, regardless. They would also chain these children to their beds if they were acting up, and they would beat them to the point that these kids would regress. So say they came in and they were able to talk when they came in. Normally by the time, they've been there for a while and they've been abused as bad, they regressed and were not able to speak anymore. So this is just the worst thing that I can ever think of. And this is why I think personally that this place is hella haunted, because you can't do that to somebody without there being some sort of something that gets let off into the universe. Like bad juju, what? I don't know. I just don't understand how they could do this to people. History does not have a good record of treating people right. And even looking at this case just gets me all, this is wrong. This is wrong. Also, the dentist chair that they ripped all their teeth out is actually still in the basement in the underground tunnels of Penhurst. So like you need any more of a trigger object than the actual chair that they used to rip the children's teeth out when they bit. I'd be biting orderlies too, man. I'd have no teeth in my mouth. I'd bite them all. Not all of the patients there were actually abandoned by their family members, even though many were. A lot of people would come and still visit, and even they were appalled by the conditions that their children were living in. And this was reported in 1912. So let's go back to this place. Opened in 1908. By 1912, there were complaints about the treatment and the care that was going on in this facility. And there was nothing that they could do about it. They were admitted into this place. They couldn't get their kids back out. Whether or not they wanted to get their kids back out, I'm sure there was a couple of people that probably tried, but their kids were kind of there and they were suffering from all these things, from being beaten, underfed, not treated well, death, and even a couple worse things that would go on between doctors and patients, or nurses and patients, or patients and patients. Years and years and years of this all happening. Changes didn't even start coming on until 1968, when there was somebody that decided to do a documentary about Penhurst. And I believe this documentary is called Suffer the Little Children, or Suffer the Children, where they went in and they filmed these conditions. And because of that documentary, in 1977, they were actually taken to a lawsuit, and it took around 8 years for this place to get shut down. It was finally shut down in the 1980s and wasn't being run anymore. But you can think it started in 1908 and didn't get shut down to the 1980s. That is literally close to 80 years of mistreatment of people going on in one facility. And the scary part is that this place hasn't even been closed that long. If you think about it, it's been closed for about 30 years. It finally shut its doors in 1987. So all of the treatment of these people were happening 30 years ago. 30 years ago. That was the standard to take care of people with mental illness. That's awful. I can really understand. I'm going to get into all the ghost stuff, but I just wanted to take a moment to think about that 30 years ago, there was a place that existed where there's no standard for taking care of anyone. The hauntings that have been going on in this place, you would expect there to be tons of different spirits. And although there are many shadow figures that have been seen wandering the halls of Penhurst, there's only one specific spirit that they can recognize and know, and it's supposedly a spirit of a little girl who will wander around. The caretakers of this property really believe that this whole place is haunted. They've heard sounds of vomiting, chains, doors being opened and closed. They've seen shadow figures walking around. People have had their shoulders tapped. There was also a couple investigators that have gone in there, well, quite a few, not just a couple, but a lot of people have gone in there to investigate, and they've heard EVPs, Class A EVPs, as to where they're saying full sentences. They've had rocks thrown at them, just a plethora of things that they think could be demonic hauntings, as well as just unrested spirits. I've heard of a lot of people also getting scratched when they go there. This is just, if anything could be ghosts, like ghosts. And not like these ghosts need any more disrespect, but they actually decided to turn Penhurst State into a haunted house. So during Halloween, a certain part of this hospital is sectioned off and they have it as a haunted house that people can go through and just explore and get scared and all these things. And I think it's really awful because this place was actually a place of horror. I don't know how they set up the asylum, if it's supposed to be an asylum, but I would think it's really wrong to do that when there was a ton of atrocities that happen here and you're setting it up as a haunted attraction for people to just go to. Like, they need any more of that juice to start scratching more people. Like, I don't, like, for me, I feel like the entire building, although it is history, should either be taken down and have some sort of memorial there, because God knows there's probably people buried on the property. They did that a lot of times in mental institutions where no one claimed them, so they buried them on the property, you know? Not a good idea for me to take the bad history of that place and just turn it into a sideshow. This is one of the places that I would love to go to investigate, you know, a small intimate group of people that just go there and would like to get the stories of these people if they have any, and if there was any way to let the people that are there or the imprinted anger that is still there move on. That would be my goal if I was able to go there. You know, sometime after quarantine, I say this a lot because I'm still in quarantine, I want to go to Penhurst and see for myself kind of the stuff that happens. So like, not only are you sitting there and learning the atrocities that humans committed, but maybe you can help them out. That's my whole thought on it. I feel like, you know, there are people before me and definitely people after me that want to try and do this, whether or not they're just there to get ghost voices. Like, don't get me wrong, that would be cool, but this is one specific one that should never have happened. There should never be kids getting hurt, you know? So it's up to you guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Penhurst is as haunted as they say it is? Do you think it isn't and it's just, you know, they're trying to draw attraction for their attraction that they've set up there? I believe that it is haunted. It is definitely a place that's on my list to go. But it's up to you guys. What do you guys think? Feel free to leave down in the comments what you guys think. If you guys like the video, if you guys give me a like, subscribe, or leave a comment down below, it helps the channel out so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. I got Patreon merch down, just in case y'all forgot, but it is down there if you want it. And if you guys are curious about any of my camera equipment or whatever, all that is down in the description. But I'll see you guys either in a couple days or next week. It's kind of play it by ear.